Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Average Movie Review Podcast. I am your average movie reviewer, and to my 2 subscribers, thank you for subscribing. It means a lot. We're getting there. We're starting off small, but we'll get there eventually one day. So appreciate you for joining me on the journey. Today I thought maybe we could talk about the current state of the MCU with Thunderbolts releasing in less than a week. I thought maybe we could just review and see what the future kind of holds, right? We have Thunderbolts releasing, and then we have Fantastic Four, and then we have Avengers Doomsday. And this will be the first Avengers film since Endgame. Yeah, first Avengers film since Endgame. So there's a lot of expectation, and a lot is probably riding on this, especially on the fact that they chose to cast Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. So I thought maybe we could look back at what made the MCU great, what kind of ruined it, and literally, what they could do for the future as well. So starting off, I guess, in the past, I've been rewatching kind of like the MCU timeline and the Infinity Saga, and I realized, like, flip, man, we were so lucky to get those movies back in the day. I know a lot of the films, especially the beginning, like Thor, Captain America, the first Avenger, received a lot of slack. And now, if you watch it, I think those are some of the best superhero movies ever to be made. Yes, of course, they have their flaws, they have their issues, but you can't deny on the fact that like Marvel kind of knew what they were doing with these films. And in all honesty, I think Thor 1 and Thor 2 were kind of some of the best representations of Thor. And I think Ragnarok kind of destroyed that. And then we got the garbage that was Love and Thunder. So I do blame everybody that praised Ragnarok and went crazy about it, because, it kind of ruined Thor for me. Right. And I know we're not talking about Thor, but that was just an example. But yeah, like, I'm going to do a deep dive into that as well and go into even more detail eventually in future episodes. But just talking about the MCU as a whole, like the Infinity Saga, like the hype around it was absolutely amazing. Like growing up watching those films, looking forward to every new film every year, trying to figure out what they're going to do, what the plan is, how are they going to introduce Thanos, how will Thanos make his arrival, which movie is going to include the next Infinity Stone, how will they further progress it. Like, you were hooked, whether you were a child of like 5 years old or whether you were a grown ass adult at like 30 or 40 when these things released. You were hooked because you could not fathom that your childhood was coming to life in such an amazing way. So, kudos to the MCU back then. Like, yeah, there were some movies that came out that weren't the best, and they were okay at the best. They were mediocre, but they weren't the worst either, especially with the films that have come out now, like post Endgame. Some films were just absolutely crap, right? Like, I look at Ant-Man Quantumania, the trailer made it look like a serious film, and I genuinely wish that it remained to be a serious film. But instead, it it wasn't, right? Like, they had such corny jokes. MODOK was a joke. Everything was a joke in that film. Nothing was taken seriously. There were moments where you were like, okay, they're about to lock in, it's about to get real. And then, they make like a dumb joke or they show MODOK's butt. Like, it just didn't work. And I wish they had taken it seriously because, you know, I guess despite Jonathan Majors' personal issues, he was a really good king, and he delivered an amazing performance. And I think, Paul Rudd did an amazing job too, given what he was given. Right? Like, you can't even blame Paul for this. I blame the director. I blame the direction it went in. I blame Kevin Feige. I blame them, right? Like they just didn't know what they were doing. You look at like the TV shows. Echo was such a good TV show, but it just wasn't marketed properly. It just wasn't hyped up properly, and I felt bad. I'm like, this isn't a bad MCU TV show. Like this is a good show, right? The best MCU TV show in the all of the MCU TV shows, or surprising that was really good, was Wolf in the Night. That was such a random thing, but it turned out to be such an amazing, amazing little. I don't even remember. I think it was like. I think was it episode based, or I think it was like an hour based or something. I think it was like a movie type of situation. Can't remember, but it was so good, right? Even Falcon and WandaVision, like they started off very strong. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I could watch at least like 4 or 5 seasons of, because their dynamic was just perfect. Sam and Bucky was just perfect, and WandaVision you could easily put up for 2 more seasons, but obviously they had to go into like the multiverse of madness and whatnot, right? You look at films like Multiverse of Madness, right? Like you watch the trailer and you're hyped up. Yeah, low key, everyone was hyped up just for like the cameos and expecting like all of those crazy cameos to show up and everything like that. But the reality was that I think it wasn't about the cameos. It was just the direction. And you can't blame certain people. Like you can't even blame Sam Raimi. Like you want to blame the director, you can't, because the truth is unfortunately he also did what he was dealt with. Right? There were cuts, there were reshoots, there were a lot of things, and I was just like, what am I gonna do? Fight Sam Raimi? Like we already know the type of director Sam Raimi is. So can you blame him for that? Yeah, I know I blame the Quantumania director, but I generally blame him because I think he did a shit job too. But with Sam Raimi, he delivers, quality, and unfortunately he just wasn't given, I guess, like full control over that, which kind of sucked because there were some certain scenes, like horror scenes in that film that were perfect, but then it was just like cut off because like you could tell like the editing and whatnot, right? You look at Unfortunately, you look at stuff like Captain America Brave New World, a movie that could have been, I guess, revolutionary or could have really cemented, Sam as Captain America, unfortunately fell flat, right? Not to say that it was a bad film, but it could have been so much better, right? The editing was choppy. You could tell there was a different storyline, there was a different thing that was happening. I understand that in order to fill seats, they had to reveal Red Hulk. I think I remember watching a video where a kid said that, or like his dad was reviewing it, and he told his dad, he's like, I wish they never revealed Red Hulk for that. And the dad was defending the marketers because he was just like, these poor people, they have to like fill these seats, and they had no choice but to reveal kind of like a big thing for that. Which again, I completely understand, but I don't think that in that case you shouldn't have revealed the leader. And in all honesty, I don't think the leader was portrayed as the best in this film, and I think he was underutilized. Another character that could have been so well done. Not bringing in the Hulk when you have Red Hulk and the leader, his two main villains, again, a missed opportunity. This could have been a great Captain America film, a great spy thriller, that it was going for. When you're watching the film, you could tell the music, the way that they shot it, it was going for a spy thriller vibe like Winter Soldier, but unfortunately just fell flat in so many different ways with different reshoots and different characters and like, editing, poor editing and all of that stuff. So, you look at the current state of the MCU and you compare it to what was the Infinity Saga. Like a lot of people will be like, well, you can't compare, this is a different time, this is a different era, but the truth is you can, because if they were able to deliver this high level of quality, what went wrong to the point where they can't deliver it now? Um, I just feel that, you know, as a fan and as somebody who's been watching this since the beginning, it's very hard to keep hope and keep going, right? Like, yes, the truth is no matter what happens, I will be there first show, first, viewing, and I will always watch it and support it to the best of my ability. But even I can't lie at the fact that there are certain things that could have been better. When I did my America review, like I did mention, like this was a decent superhero film, like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10, but it could have been so much better, unfortunately. And what sucked was the fact that Sam or like oh crap, what's his name? Anthony Mackie had to pay for it, right? he didn't get his flowers, and I feel terrible about that because he genuinely deserves it. He did such a good job as Captain America. He is Captain America, whether people want to admit it or not, but he is Captain America. So looking back at like the MCU and the current state, it's just sad to see. Now, given that there were some really good hits, you had, Spider-Man No Way Home. A lot of people say it was only good because of the cameo clickbait, but that's not true. We got to see Tom Holland in a very different range as Spider-Man, and I think he cemented himself as Spider-Man. And a lot of people used to we talked a lot of shit about John Watts' trilogy of Spider-Man, but when you really watch it together, you actually notice that John Watts made a great trilogy for Spider-Man as well. Like he did a fantastic job of making Spider-Man who he is. And representing Spider-Man for what he is. So, kudos to John Watts for that. And nobody will agree with that, but the reality is in a couple of years, they'll look back at it and they'll look at that trilogy and they'll be like, holy shit, this was a really good trilogy. This was really good. Like, they did a really good job with Spider-Man. That's how people are. It's just, they're never going to praise things as it comes out. They'll always praise it 10 to 15 years from now when they have something shittier to compare it to. You look at that No Way Home. Shang-Chi was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I still think one of the best villains in the MCU was the Mandarin in Shang-Chi. The actor whose name I can't remember did a phenomenal job. Holy crap. Absolutely amazing. He actually made me scared. Like, I was scared of him. Like, holy crap. Such an amazing job. Shang-Chi was another big hit in my opinion. The TV shows, some of the TV shows like Loki, season 1 and 2 absolutely amazing. What else came out? You had WandaVision, you had Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Secret Invasion was a big flop, unfortunately. CGI wise, story wise, everything just it was just too much. I don't know what they were doing with that. That show could have been something so amazing, and they just kind of threw it all in the gutter for no absolute freaking reason at all. So I don't know why they did that. Um, what else movies came out that were pretty good post Endgame? Um, I think really like the two really main and outstanding films were Spider-Man No Way Home and our good friend Shang-Chi. Like I'm just gonna quickly open up my app here and just double check. Like I can't even remember the films that came out. Like that's how bad. Oh, we got a great season of Daredevil this season as well. I've done my reviews on that, so give that a check out as well. Um, let's see here. We have WandaVision, Black Widow. Unfortunately, was a big miss. If it had come out when it was supposed to come out, it probably would have been a big hit. But they messed it up on that one. Eternals was okay. Like, again, I don't think that movie deserves all the hate that it gets. I think it was a pretty good movie, and I think people were just overhating for the fact of overhating. Hawkeye was good. Moon Knight was good. Multiverse of Madness was okay. Could have been better. Again, lots of things. Miss Marvel was good. Love and Thunder was just absolutely crap. She-Hulk is one of those shows where it just gets a lot of hate for no reason. I've never read up on She-Hulk. I've never been a fan of her. Like I like in the sense that I don't know her as well. But according to a lot of people, like this was a comic accurate She-Hulk, and doing a little bit of research on my own, I found out that yeah, it was. So again, unnecessary, like forced hate for no reason. Wakanda Forever was good too. Namor did an absolute amazing job, but I just feel like whether people want to admit it or not, as much as that movie was okay and good, could have been better had they had replaced Chadwick. I know that they had done that as a tribute, and at the time I agreed, and I said, you know what, that makes so much sense to me, and I totally love that they're going to do that. But looking back at it in hindsight, I just feel like it could have been so much better. Guardians of the Galaxy, again, pretty good. Volume 3 was really, really good. Great trilogy. I don't think any of the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of missed. This one was amazing. I cried in this one. I remember crying, like literally tears falling down my face in the theater because of how good it was. That was another solid hit. The Marvels, again, unnecessary amount of hate. Still a good film. Could have been better for sure. I think due to poor editing and like not giving enough story. So that was something that could have been better. And then we had Deadpool and Wolverine, which was literally a home run, a grand slam for Marvel, given everything that was going on with them, right? With their constant kind of like, what's gonna happen. Like just like the bad reviews of the certain films and the Marvels had just come out again, forced hate, 100%. Um, another another thing that was really really good was Agatha. I enjoyed that show thoroughly. I think anybody who didn't enjoy that show or called that show garbage is a liar, because that was actually a really innovative and really fun show to watch. So kudos to them on Agatha as well. When you look at the current state of the MCU, I think the issue here is, what is the end game, right? What are we fighting towards? Every post credit scene or every reference to the multiverse, every little moment kind of falls flat. There's no real end game, and I think talking about the facts now, it's that's the issue, right? That's been the issue. Where are we headed? Yeah, you just gave us an Avengers Doomsday film, but nothing signaled towards that. Nothing was signified towards that, right? When you look at phase 1 of the MCU, you know, nobody I don't think anybody expected Loki to be the villain of the MCU for phase 1, but we knew where we were headed, right? The Avengers were assembling, right? We had Iron Man in the Incredible Hulk with what's his name? Shoot, can't remember his name. Sorry, guys, I'm so out of it. Edward Norton. We had the post credit scene of Iron Man going and meeting with Colonel sorry, General Ross, and like saying that we're putting together a team, right? Setting that up. Iron Man 2 again, Fury showing up and talking to him. Even Iron Man 1, at the end of that post credit scene, again assembling, right? And then Thor's post credit scene was the Tesseract, which led into Captain America, the first Avenger, and then the post credit scene for that was literally a little hint of the Avengers film, and then also like what was it again? Him unthawing into present day, right? And then we got the Avengers. Like, this is what it was assembling to. Again, amazing thing, right? Like, what we were going, and then hinting the larger picture, which was Thanos in the Avengers, right? Going through it forward, like each film, like after Winter Soldier, we got to see the twins. We got to see the scepter again. We knew that the scepter had something to do with some of that sort. Iron Man 3 was kind of like the end of Robert Downey Jr.'s trilogy. Um, I don't remember if Iron Man 3's post credit. Yeah, Iron Man 3's post credit didn't really have anything. It was just him talking to Bruce. So really, it didn't really set up anything. It was kind of just like a filler film, and it was a good film as well. I have my gripe with that film as well, which I'll do when I get to that review. And then you had Ant Man setting up. I don't remember their post credit either, but it was setting up something. Oh, the return of Jean, like not Jean, sorry. Was her name Jean? Or like the wife and everything. The fact that she could return. Um, and then the Wasp set up as well. And then Guardians of the Galaxy had the whole Thanos. Thor 2 had the Reality Stone, or the mention of the Reality Stone. So again, these films, some of the films may not be directly connected, or they may not show the connection, but they still were trying their best. Not trying their best. They were actually still connecting in small and large parts. So you know, that's what made the MCU so beautiful. The fact that they had call outs, that they brought back characters, or they were mentioning things that happened in previous films. Like everything was interconnected. That's the word that's the key word here, interconnected. Whereas here in the multiverse saga, we had so many different projects that just didn't feel connected at all. It didn't set up anything. Like Captain America Brave New World didn't set up anything. The idea that the director said that the post-credit scene had to do with the Illuminati, that was not hinted at all throughout that entire thing. It sounded more like he was calling his variants like his version of his variants. Kang was the only one that was set up properly. Unfortunately, was they had to let go of because of the whole Jonathan Majors issue, and we lost out on Avengers Kang Dynasty, which again could have been continued had they had just recasted him. Like, given his history at the time, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's innocent," blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, maybe you could have got him, but then after finding out a few other things about him, I understand why you didn't end up going back to him. But you could have easily recasted him and continued what was beginning to look like the start of something new and fresh, right? Setting these things up could have changed, I guess, the direction of the MCU. We would have had an actual multiversal villain, right? Like now we have Doctor Doom, Secret Wars, Doomsday, all of that stuff is cool and it's great, and I'm excited for it. And like, the hype is there clearly when you're doing like a cast reveal for 5-6 hours and you have millions of people around the world watching it. Clearly, the hype is there. But the point at the end of the day is like, will it be enough, right? Kevin Feige made it clear that going forward, they're only going to focus on a certain amount of projects and they're going to give it their all, which I think they should have done from the beginning instead of just dumping out projects consistently, right? And, trying to create a world that's going to, feel connected. But unfortunately, you've kind of lost your original fan base, the people that have been with this entire universe since the beginning. And it kind of sucks that you know we're here, like we're still here, we're gonna still watch it, but we've also kind of lost hope, right? So you know i I think there's a lot of things that they could do going forward. They can still bring back Kang, they can still make him a huge part of the MCU. There is a way. I'm not going to reveal it because if Kevin Feige ever hears it, maybe he'll hire me. And Kevin, if you're here listening to this, or if it gets to you somehow, dinner in Toronto anytime, buddy. And trust me, I'll make you millions, billions. I'll bring back Marvel. I know what to do. There are a lot of things that you could do that could bring back that hype going forward. I like the fact that you're focused on that. Captain America: Brave New World should have been a huge hit. And I don't know if it had to do. I'm gonna blame Feige. I'm gonna blame the director. I'm gonna blame. Actually, I'm not gonna blame the director. I'm gonna blame Marvel. I'm gonna blame Disney for their oversight and just not giving it the proper amount of control that it deserves. So I 100% blame them on that one. But this should have been a great start to the year. Thunderbolts looks very, very promising. The trailers have been great. The marketing has been on point. I know I read somewhere where they're still tracking it to be a low, opening film, but I think once the film releases, people will go watch it. And I think the reviews will be good as well. I'm excited to go watch it next week as well. I'm going to be watching it the night before, so I'll definitely have my review right up as soon as I'm finished watching it. So watch out for that. I genuinely think, given everything that I've seen so far about the film, I'm excited. It looks promising, but I don't know if it's going to be as good as it looks. I really hope so, but we just have to wait and watch at that point. I hope it doesn't get over scrutinized. I hope people see it for what it is and not for what they want it to be. And I think that's the biggest issue with reviewers today. They see it for what they want it to be, not for what it is. I'm looking at this film, I'm looking at the trailers, and all I see is a bunch of misfits coming together, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, working towards a common goal. And that looks absolutely amazing. And and there's a little bit of comedy, there's a little bit of seriousness, there's a little bit of action, there's a little bit of, progressing the story. So it looks very, very promising. And so does Fantastic Four thus far. It looks like it's going to be a big hit, and I love the fact, and I was going to do a trailer reaction to it, but I guess I just didn't have the time. But I absolutely love the fact that they haven't shown us the full version of Galactus. I'm just loving the tease, and I hope they continue that. That's how you bring people in. Like, a tease. It doesn't need to be a full blown. I don't need to see the full blown thing. I'm just excited just to see his legs move or his back of his head. I don't care what he looks like at this point. I just want to see him. So in order to see him, I have to go watch the movie, which is what I'm gonna do, right? And I think that's where like the marketing team kind of failed with Captain America. Like, either don't show the leader or don't show the Hulk, right? Give us a tease of maybe the Hulk coming out, but we don't need to actually see him. And the leaks. I think another issue with these films is the leaks, right? The fact that they were able to keep Johnny Storm hidden from Deadpool and Wolverine was a huge win on my part. Multiverse of Madness, I didn't hear anything about that film until the trailer released, and I didn't see a single set leak from that film. I specifically remember nobody knew what the hell was going on with that film. We just knew it was coming out. Again, phenomenal job. You see set leaks from Doomsday right now. Again, they could do better and they could get rid of. They could stop with the leaks, but that's something that they probably won't be doing. You have a lot of other things, a lot of other factors that you can put into, like, I think the leaks are the biggest issue for me. I think if people stop leaking things, the hype would be real, right? And we would know a lot more of what the story was and what's going on and where we're headed and all of that as well, right? And I think people leaking things is just the worst, right? Like, I'm seeing some leaked photos from the Doomsday set, and I'm trying to avoid them as much as I can, but you can only avoid so much. But that's the reality of it, right? So yes, thank you for joining me on my rant. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please comment. Please leave. Let me know what you guys think. I would definitely respond back to all of you. I just want to hear what your opinions are, and catch me on the next review or my next rant. Yeah. So thank you for listening, guys, and have a wonderful day.